What happens when a joke goes too far and the one you thought was powerless turns the tables? I never expected to be handed official court papers at my own front door, papers that changed my life and made me realize my harmless birthday prank wasn't so harmless after all. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. The restaurant buzzed with conversation as I adjusted my dress and checked my reflection in the window. Simon's 36th birthday dinner was supposed to be perfect, but his parents were already ruining it with their stiff, judgmental presence across the table. June Ellis sat ramrod straight, her grey hair pulled into that same boring bun she'd worn for decades. Walter barely spoke, just nodded politely when spoken to. They made me feel like I was being evaluated every time I opened my mouth. "Eluned, you look lovely tonight," June said, with that fake smile I'd grown to hate. "That dress is very bold." I forced a laugh. "Thanks, June. I figured Simon's birthday called for something fun." I glanced at my boyfriend, hoping he'd back me up, but he was studying his menu like it contained the secrets of the universe. "Simon, honey, you seem nervous," I said, reaching across to squeeze his hand. "It's just dinner with family." "I'm fine," he mumbled, not meeting my eyes. "Just want everything to go smoothly." That was Simon for you, always worried about keeping the peace. His parents had him trained like a puppy, jumping through hoops to earn their approval. It was pathetic, really. My sister Tessa kicked me under the table when I rolled my eyes. She'd been giving me warning looks all evening, but I ignored her. Someone needed to lighten up this funeral atmosphere. "So, Walter," I said, turning to Simon's father, "how's retirement treating you? Must be nice not having to pretend to care about other people's problems anymore." Walter's eyebrows raised slightly. "I enjoyed helping solve engineering challenges. It was rewarding work." "Oh, I'm sure," I said with a grin. "Simon definitely inherited your people skills." Simon's grip on his water glass tightened. "Eluned?" "What? I'm just saying you're both the strong, silent types." I winked at the table. "Though I guess someone has to balance out all that excitement." A few of our friends chuckled nervously. My coworker Sarah shifted in her seat, looking uncomfortable. But I was just getting started. The appetizers arrived, giving everyone something to focus on besides the growing tension. I pulled out my phone to snap a few pictures, making sure to get shots of June's pinched expression and Walter's obvious discomfort. "This is going straight to Instagram," I announced. "Simon's birthday dinner with the in-laws. Well, almost in-laws." I gave Simon a pointed look. We'd been together 3 years, and he still hadn't proposed. Another failure I could blame on his parents' influence. "Maybe we should focus on enjoying the meal," June suggested quietly. "Oh, we are," I said brightly. "I'm just documenting the memories. You know how it is. These family gatherings are so rare and special." Simon's friend Mike tried to change the subject. "Hey Simon, how's work going? Still busy with tax season prep?" "It's picking up," Simon replied, clearly grateful for the distraction. "January's always hectic." "I bet," I interjected. "Simon works so hard, don't you, honey? Sometimes I wonder if he learned that from watching his dad. All work and no play." Walter set down his fork. "Hard work built a good life for our family." "Of course it did," I said, my voice dripping with false sweetness. "And look how well-rounded Simon turned out. He can balance a spreadsheet and have a conversation about the weather." Tessa grabbed my arm. "Elle, maybe we should—" "What?" "I'm just appreciating my boyfriend's many talents." I smiled around the table. "Though I have to admit, sometimes I feel like I'm dating his parents too, you know? They have such strong opinions about everything we do." June's face flushed red. "We've never interfered in your relationship." "Haven't you?" I laughed. The constant suggestions about Simon's career, the comments about our living situation, the way you look at me like I'm not good enough for your precious son. "Eluned, that's enough," Simon said firmly. "Is it, though?" I was warming up now, feeling the familiar rush of being the center of attention. I mean, we're all adults here. We can have an honest conversation. The waiter appeared with our entrees, but the festive mood had completely evaporated. June's eyes were watery, and Walter looked like he wanted to disappear into his chair. "You know what?" I said, raising my wine glass. "Let's make a toast to Simon, who somehow turned out amazing despite having parents who think fun is a four-letter word." The table went dead silent. Sarah actually gasped. Mike stared at his plate like he was trying to become invisible. "Eluned," Tessa hissed, but I wasn't done. The wine and the audience had me feeling bold and righteous. These people needed to hear some truth. "I'm serious," I continued, still holding my glass high. "Here's to Simon, who deserves parents who actually celebrate his happiness instead of judging every choice he makes." June pushed back from the table, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. "Excuse me," she whispered, her voice breaking. She hurried toward the restrooms, Walter immediately following. Simon sat frozen, his face pale with shock and embarrassment. "Well," I said, finally lowering my glass, "I guess the truth hurts." The damage was done. Our friends made awkward excuses and left early. Simon barely spoke for the rest of the meal. When his parents returned, they quietly asked for the check and said they needed to get home. But I felt vindicated. Someone had finally said what needed to be said. I had no idea I'd just lit the fuse on a bomb that would destroy everything. The drive home was suffocating. Simon gripped the steering wheel so tightly, his knuckles were white, staring straight ahead, while I tried to explain why I'd done nothing wrong. "They needed to hear it, Simon," I said for the third time. "Your parents have been passive-aggressive with me since day one." "They welcomed you into our family," he replied quietly. "My mother spent 2 hours cooking your favorite dessert for tonight." I scoffed. "Oh, please. That lemon cake was clearly a peace offering because she knows how much she disapproves of me." Simon pulled into our driveway and turned off the engine, but didn't move to get out. "Do you hear yourself right now?" "I hear someone who's finally standing up for our relationship," I shot back. "When was the last time you defended me to them? When was the last time you gave me a reason to?" The question hit like a slap. I stared at him, searching for the usual guilt in his eyes, the immediate apology that always followed whenever he pushed back against me. But tonight, something was different. "Wow," I said. "Wow, Simon. So this is my fault?" "I didn't say that. You didn't have to." I got out of the car and slammed the door, my heels clicking angrily on the pavement. "Your parents have you so brainwashed, you can't even see how they treat me." Inside the house, Simon went straight to the couch and grabbed a pillow and blanket from the closet. The message was clear. He wasn't sleeping in our bed tonight. "Really?" I asked. "You're going to punish me for being honest?" "I'm not punishing anyone," he said, not looking at me. "I just need some space to think." "Think about what? How you're going to apologize to Mommy and Daddy for your girlfriend having opinions?" Simon finally looked at me, and something in his expression made me take a step back. "I'm thinking about a lot of things, Eluned." I wanted to keep fighting, to push until he broke down and admitted I was right. But something in his tone warned me off. Instead, I huffed and stormed to our bedroom, slamming the door behind me. An hour later, I was wide awake, replaying the evening and getting angrier by the minute. Everyone was overreacting. June Ellis was a cold, judgmental woman who'd never liked me, and Walter was her silent enabler. I'd simply called them out on their behavior. My phone buzzed with a text from Tessa. "El, what the hell was that tonight? You went way too far." I typed back quickly. "I said what everyone was thinking. They're impossible. They're Simon's parents, and they've always been nice to you." "Nice? Are you kidding me? They look at me like I'm trash." "No, they don't. You're paranoid." I threw my phone across the room. Even my own sister was taking their side. Fine. If everyone wanted to pretend the Ellis family were saints, they could live in their delusion, but I needed someone who understood me, someone who saw things clearly. I retrieved my phone and opened a different conversation thread. "You awake?" I typed. The response came quickly. Always for you. Rough night. The worst. Can we meet tomorrow? I need to talk to someone who gets it. Of course. Usual place, 2 p.m. Perfect. Thank you. I deleted the conversation thread and put my phone on silent. Tomorrow I'd talk to Dane and remember what it felt like to be appreciated. He understood that I deserved better than Simon's boring, judgmental world. The next morning, Simon was gone before I woke up. He'd left coffee in the pot, but no note. When I called his office, his assistant said he was in meetings all day. By afternoon, I was climbing the walls. I'd tried calling June to smooth things over, but she'd politely said she needed time to process what happened. Walter didn't answer his phone at all. My mother called around noon. Tessa told me about last night, Karen said. Honestly, Eluned, I don't know why you put up with that family. Finally, someone with sense. Thank you, Mum. Everyone's acting like I committed murder. They've never appreciated you, she continued. Simon's too weak to stand up to his parents, and now they're all ganging up on you. Exactly. I'm the victim here, but somehow I'm the bad guy. You should consider whether this relationship is worth the stress, honey. You're 34 years old. You shouldn't have to fight for basic respect. After hanging up, I felt vindicated. My mother saw the situation clearly. I wasn't the problem, the Ellis family was. I got ready carefully for my meeting with Dane, choosing a dress that made me feel confident and attractive. The local cafe was busy enough that we could talk without being overheard, but quiet enough for real conversation. Dane was already waiting when I arrived, his dark hair falling perfectly across his forehead as he smiled at me. At 32, he had an easy confidence that Simon lacked. He made me feel interesting and desirable. You look stressed, he said, standing to hug me. It's been a nightmare, I admitted, sliding into the booth across from him. Simon's entire family is acting like I'm some kind of monster. What happened? I told him the whole story, watching his expressions of sympathy and outrage. He understood immediately that I'd been provoked, that June and Walter's cold treatment had pushed me to my breaking point. You shouldn't have to pretend to be someone you're not, Dane said, reaching across to squeeze my hand. Life's too short to walk on eggshells around people who don't appreciate you. That's exactly what I keep trying to tell Simon, I said. But he's so concerned with keeping everyone happy that he never considers my feelings. Maybe it's time to consider what you really want, Dane suggested. You deserve someone who puts you first. His thumb traced circles on my palm, and I felt that familiar flutter of excitement. With Dane, I didn't have to be the responsible girlfriend or the perfect daughter-in-law. I could just be myself. I should go, I said reluctantly. Simon will be home soon, and I don't want another fight. Will I see you again soon? I hope so, I said, meaning it. On the drive home, I felt lighter than I had all day. Dane reminded me that I had options, that I didn't have to accept being treated like a second-class citizen in my own relationship. When Simon came home that evening, he was polite but distant. We ate dinner in near silence, the weight of unspoken words hanging between us. I think you should apologize to my parents, he said finally. For what? Being honest? For humiliating them in public, for making my birthday dinner about your grievances with them. I set down my fork. So we're back to this being all my fault. I'm not saying it's all your fault, but what you did last night was cruel, Eluned. They didn't deserve that. And I don't deserve to be treated like an outsider in your family. Simon rubbed his temples. They've never treated you like an outsider. You don't see it because you don't want to see it, I said, but I'm done pretending everything's fine when it's not. So what does that mean? I looked at him across the table, this man I'd been with for 3 years, who still couldn't see things from my perspective. It means I'm done apologizing for having a backbone. Simon nodded slowly, like I'd confirmed something he'd been thinking. Okay, he said. Good to know. That night, he slept on the couch again, and for the first time, I didn't try to convince him to come to bed. Something fundamental had shifted between us, and I wasn't sure either of us knew how to shift it back. The next few days passed in a cold war of polite conversation and careful avoidance. Simon left early for work and came home late, claiming he was busy with client meetings. I threw myself into my marketing projects, staying late at the office to avoid the tension at home. But my mind kept drifting to my conversation with Dane. He'd texted me twice since our coffee meeting, just checking in and reminding me that I had someone who cared about my feelings. "How are you holding up?" his latest message read. "Still dealing with family drama?" I typed back quickly, "It's getting worse. Simon's completely shut down. That's not fair to you. Want to talk about it?" "Maybe. Things are complicated right now. I'm here when you're ready. You deserve better than walking on eggshells." I deleted the conversation thread and put my phone away, but his words stayed with me. I did deserve better. I deserved someone who appreciated my honesty and didn't make me feel guilty for having opinions. That evening, Tessa stopped by unannounced. She found me in the kitchen, mechanically chopping vegetables for a dinner Simon probably wouldn't eat anyway. "You look terrible," she said bluntly. "Thanks, that's exactly what I needed to hear." "Elle, what's going on? And don't say everything's fine because Simon looks like he hasn't slept in days." I set down the knife and faced my sister. "Simon's parents hate me, he won't defend me, and apparently I'm the villain for pointing out the obvious." "They don't hate you," Tessa said, "but what you said at that dinner was brutal. June Ellis looked like you'd slapped her." "Maybe she needed a wake-up call." "About what? Being a devoted mother? Caring about her son's happiness?" I stared at Tessa. "Whose side are you on?" "I'm on your side, which is why I'm trying to keep you from destroying your life over pride." She sat down at the kitchen table. "Simon's a good guy, Elle. He loves you, but you're pushing him away." "I'm not pushing anyone away, I'm just not pretending to be someone I'm not anymore." "Since when is being kind pretending?" The question hung in the air between us. I wanted to argue, to explain why she was wrong, but something in her expression stopped me. "Where were you yesterday afternoon?" Tessa asked suddenly. "I drove by your office around 3 and your car wasn't there." My stomach clenched. "I had a client meeting." "With who?" "Does it matter?" "It does if you're lying about it." Tessa leaned forward. "Elle, please tell me you're not doing something stupid." "I'm not doing anything," I said, but my voice sounded weak even to me. "Because if you're having an affair, it'll destroy everything. Simon, your job, your reputation." "I'm not having an affair," I snapped. "God, Tessa, I met a friend for coffee." "Since when is that a crime?" "What friend?" I turned back to the vegetables, my hands shaking slightly. "Just someone from work. We were discussing a project." Tessa was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was gentle but firm. "Whatever's going on, fix it before it's too late. Simon's not going to wait around forever." After she left, I sat alone in the kitchen, thinking about her words. Was I being unreasonable? Had I really been that cruel to June and Walter? But then I remembered June's fake smiles, Walter's judgmental silences, the way they both looked at me like I wasn't good enough for their son. No, I'd been right to call them out. If Simon couldn't see that, maybe Tessa was wrong about him being worth fighting for. My phone buzzed. Another message from Dane. "Thinking about you. Hope you're okay." This time, I didn't delete it right away. The next morning, Simon was in the kitchen when I came down for coffee. He was reading something on his phone, his expression unreadable. "Morning," I said carefully. "Morning." He didn't look up. "Listen, about the other night." "Eluned, I need to ask you something." He set down his phone and looked at me directly. "Have you been going to Cornerstone Cafe lately?" My blood turned to ice. "What?" "It's a simple question. Have you been to Cornerstone Cafe?" Maybe once or twice." "Why?" Simon picked up his phone and showed me the screen. It was our credit card statement, with a charge from Cornerstone Cafe highlighted in yellow. "This charge is from last Tuesday. The same day you said you were working late on the Henderson account. His voice was eerily calm. But when I called your office at 5:30, they said you'd left at 3. I felt trapped, caught in a lie I hadn't even realized I was telling. I did work late. I just stopped for coffee first. For 2 hours. I needed to think. About us, about everything that's been happening. Simon nodded slowly, like he was processing information. Who did you meet there? What? The charge is for 2 drinks and 2 pastries. Who did you meet there, Eluned? My mind raced, searching for a plausible explanation. I ran into someone from the office. We ended up talking. Who? Does it matter? It does to me. We stared at each other across the kitchen, and I realized this was a turning point. I could tell him the truth about Dane, explain that we were just friends, that I needed someone to talk to about our problems. Or I could stick to my story and hope he'd drop it. It was just a colleague, I said finally. We talked about work stuff. Simon picked up his phone and put it in his pocket. Okay, he said quietly. Okay? Okay. He grabbed his coffee and headed for the door. I'll see you tonight. After he left, I sat at the kitchen table, shaking. The way he'd said okay didn't sound like acceptance. It sounded like he was filing information away for later use. I needed to be more careful. Simon was clearly suspicious, and I couldn't afford to give him ammunition. Whatever was developing with Dane would have to wait until things settled down at home. But even as I made that resolution, I found myself looking forward to Dane's next message. In a world where everyone seemed to be against me, he was the one person who understood what I was going through. That had to count for something, didn't it? 2 weeks later, our friend group gathered for Mike's promotion celebration at Santino's, the same restaurant where I'd had my confrontation with Simon's parents. The irony wasn't lost on me, but I was determined to show everyone that I was fine, better than fine. Simon had been increasingly distant since the credit card incident, but he'd agreed to come to the party. He sat beside me at the long table, polite but detached, like he was performing the role of supportive boyfriend rather than actually being one. So Eluned, said Jessica, Mike's girlfriend, how are things going with wedding planning? I nearly choked on my wine. Wedding planning? Oh, I thought... Jessica looked confused. Didn't you and Simon get engaged? The table went quiet. I felt heat creep up my neck as everyone looked between Simon and me, waiting for an answer. Not yet, I said with a forced laugh. Simon's taking his time making sure I'm worthy of the Ellis family name. A few people chuckled nervously. Simon's jaw tightened, but he didn't respond. Well, when it happens, it'll be worth the wait, Jessica said diplomatically. Will it, though? I took another sip of wine, feeling reckless. I mean, first I'll have to pass the parent approval test. And let me tell you, June and Walter Ellis have very high standards. Eluned, Simon said quietly. What? I'm just sharing our experience. I turned to the table with a bright smile. Did you guys know that Simon's parents have opinions about everything? Where we live, how I dress, what I do for work? It's like having 2 extra parents, except they never actually raised me. Sarah shifted uncomfortably in her seat. I'm sure they mean well. Oh, they definitely mean well, I said. Like when June suggested I might want to tone down my personality at family gatherings, or when Walter asked Simon if he was sure I was the settling type. They never said that, Simon said firmly, didn't they? I turned to face him. Maybe not in those exact words, but the message was pretty clear. Mike cleared his throat. Hey, should we order appetizers? But I was just getting started. The wine had loosened my tongue, and the audience was giving me the validation I'd been craving for weeks. The best part, I continued, is how Simon always takes their side. Like at his birthday dinner, when I finally called them out on their passive-aggressive behavior, suddenly I was the bad guy. You made my mother cry, Simon said, his voice low and controlled. I told the truth. If that made her cry, maybe she should examine her behavior. The table was dead silent now. Our friends were staring at their drinks, clearly wishing they were anywhere else. "You know what the real problem is?" I said, warming to my theme. "Simon's 36 years old, but he still needs Mommy and Daddy's approval for everything. It's honestly kind of pathetic." That did it. Simon stood up so abruptly, his chair scraped against the floor. "I need some air," he said, and walked away from the table. "See?" I said to the group. "Perfect example. Can't handle any criticism of his precious parents." "Eluned," Sarah said carefully. "Maybe you should go talk to him." "Why? So I can apologize for having opinions?" I pulled out my phone and snapped a selfie, making sure to get the restaurant's ambience in the background. "This is going on Instagram. Date night drama, when your boyfriend chooses his parents over his girlfriend." "Don't post that," Mike said sharply. "Why not? It's my life." "Because you're being cruel," Jessica said. "And honestly, it's making everyone uncomfortable." I looked around the table at my friends' faces, some disapproving, others just sad. These people didn't understand what I was dealing with. They had normal relationships with normal families. "Fine," I said, standing up. "If everyone wants to pretend Simon's perfect and I'm the problem, I'll leave you to your delusions." I grabbed my purse and headed for the bar, where I ordered another wine and tried to calm down. Through the window, I could see Simon on his phone in the parking lot, probably calling his parents to complain about me. "Rough night?" I turned to find Dane sliding onto the bar stool next to me. He looked handsome in his dark jacket, his eyes full of sympathy. "What are you doing here?" I asked, surprised. "I was meeting some friends for drinks. Saw you through the window and thought you looked like you could use a friendly face." "God, yes." I felt tears prick my eyes. Everyone thinks I'm some kind of monster. "You're not a monster," Dane said gently. "You're just honest about what you need. Some people can't handle that." Simon walked away from me, in front of all our friends. "That's not okay," Dane said, signaling the bartender. "You deserve someone who stands by you, especially in public." We talked for another hour, Dane listening sympathetically as I explained the impossible situation I was in. He understood that Simon's parents were the real problem, that their disapproval was poisoning my relationship. "You know," he said as last call approached, "maybe this is a sign. Maybe the universe is telling you it's time for a change." "What kind of change?" "The kind where you stop settling for someone who doesn't appreciate what he has." When I finally got home, Simon was waiting in the living room. He looked tired and older than his 36 years. "We need to talk," he said. "About what? How I embarrassed you in front of your friends?" "About us, about where this is going." Something in his tone made me pause. "What do you mean?" "I mean, I can't do this anymore, Eluned. The constant fighting, the public humiliation, the way you talk about my family, I'm done." "So you're breaking up with me?" "I'm asking you to decide what you want, because if you want to be with me, things have to change. You need to apologize to my parents, stop bad-mouthing them to our friends, and figure out why you're so angry all the time." I stared at him. "And if I don't?" "Then we're done." The ultimatum hung between us like a challenge. Part of me wanted to apologize, to find a way back to the easy comfort we'd once shared. But a bigger part of me was tired of being told I was wrong for having feelings. "Fine," I said. "Let me think about it." Simon nodded. "Take all the time you need. But Eluned, I won't keep living like this. I deserve better, and deep down, you know it." He went to bed, leaving me alone with my thoughts and the memory of Dane's understanding smile. Maybe Simon was right. Maybe we both deserved better. Maybe it was time to stop pretending this relationship could be fixed. Over the next week, I found myself in a strange limbo. Simon was polite but distant, going through the motions of our relationship while clearly waiting for my decision. I threw myself into work and spent more time texting with Dane, who continued to offer sympathy and understanding. "You shouldn't have to choose between being yourself and keeping your boyfriend happy," he wrote. "The right person will love you exactly as you are." His words felt like a lifeline. While everyone else was telling me to change, to apologize, to make myself smaller, Dane appreciated my strength and honesty. We started meeting for coffee more regularly. I told myself it was just friendship, someone to talk to while I figured out my relationship. But I was careful to pay in cash and delete our text conversations afterward. Simon's credit card interrogation had made me paranoid. On Thursday, Simon came home early from work and found me getting ready to go out. "Where are you headed?" he asked. "Just meeting a friend for coffee," I said, applying lipstick in the hallway mirror. "Which friend?" "Does it matter?" Simon leaned against the doorframe, studying me. "It does if you're lying about it." "I'm not lying about anything." "Then tell me who you're meeting." I turned to face him, irritated by the interrogation. "A colleague from work. We're discussing a project." "What project?" "Simon, what is this? Are you tracking my every move now?" "I'm trying to understand why my girlfriend is sneaking around and lying to me." "I'm not sneaking around." "You pay for coffee in cash now. You delete your text messages. You're gone for hours at a time with vague explanations." Simon's voice was calm, but his eyes were hard. "Either you're having an affair or you're planning one." The accusation hit like a physical blow. "How dare you? Am I wrong?" I wanted to deny it, to act outraged by his suspicion, but looking at his face, I realized he already knew the answer. "It's not what you think," I said quietly. "What is it then?" "He's just a friend, someone who listens without judging me." "He?" I closed my eyes. "His name is Dane. He works at Cornerstone Cafe. We talk sometimes." "About what?" "About life, about feeling unappreciated and misunderstood." Simon nodded slowly. "And does he know you have a boyfriend?" I hesitated too long. Simon's expression shifted from hurt to something harder. "He knows," I said finally. "But it's not like that. We're just friends." "Friends who meet in secret, friends you lie to me about, friends whose conversations you delete." "Because I knew you'd react like this. You'd make it into something it's not." "What is it, Eluned?" The question hung between us. What was it? A friendship? An emotional affair? The beginning of something more? "I don't know," I admitted. Simon walked to the closet and pulled out a suitcase. "What are you doing?" "Packing. I'm going to stay with my parents for a while." "Simon, wait." "No." He turned to face me. "I've waited long enough. You humiliated my parents, embarrassed me in front of our friends, and now you're having an emotional affair with some barista because he tells you what you want to hear." "It's not an affair." "Isn't it?" Simon started throwing clothes into the suitcase. "You're sharing our relationship problems with another man. You're lying to me about seeing him. You're more excited about his texts than talking to me." I wanted to argue, but every word he said was true. "I never meant for it to happen," I said weakly. "But it did happen, and instead of ending it, you're here getting dressed up to see him again." Shame washed over me. "Simon, please." "Please what? Please pretend this didn't happen. Please keep enabling your behavior while you figure out if you want to trade me in for someone newer." "That's not what this is." Simon zipped up the suitcase and faced me. "Then what is it?" I opened my mouth to explain, but no words came. How could I make him understand that Dane made me feel valued and interesting, while Simon made me feel like I was constantly failing some test I didn't know I was taking? "I need time to think," I said finally. "So do I." Simon picked up his suitcase. "When you figure out what you want, let me know. But Eluned? I won't be anyone's backup plan." He left without another word, leaving me alone in our suddenly too quiet house. I cancelled my coffee date with Dane and spent the evening crying and second-guessing everything. But by the next morning, I was angry again. Simon had made me feel like a criminal for having a friend. He'd thrown around accusations and ultimatums instead of trying to understand why I'd needed someone to talk to. Maybe his leaving was for the best. Maybe it was time to stop pretending we were compatible when we clearly weren't. I texted Dane. "Simon and I are taking a break." Want to get dinner tonight instead of coffee? His response came quickly. I'm sorry you're going through this. Yes, dinner sounds perfect. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe, but I had no idea that Simon wasn't just taking time to think. He was planning something that would change everything. 2 weeks after Simon moved out, I was finally starting to feel like myself again. Dane and I had been on several dates, real dates, not secret coffee meetings, and I was remembering what it felt like to be with someone who appreciated me. He was everything Simon wasn't: spontaneous, complimentary, exciting. He made me laugh and told me I was beautiful. He thought my honesty was refreshing instead of problematic. You deserve so much better than how Simon treated you, he said over dinner at a trendy downtown restaurant. A woman like you should be cherished, not criticized. I felt validated in a way I hadn't in years. This was what a healthy relationship looked like: mutual respect and admiration, not constant judgment and walking on eggshells. My mother agreed. I never liked Simon anyway, she said when I called to update her. He was too controlling, always making you feel like you weren't good enough. Even Tessa was coming around. If you're happier, then maybe this is for the best, she admitted. You do seem more relaxed. I was more relaxed. I was sleeping better, laughing more, feeling optimistic about the future. Dane talked about us taking a trip together, maybe to the coast. He made plans that included me, unlike Simon, who could never commit to anything without consulting his parents first. The only dark cloud was the practical matter of dividing our shared life. Simon had been staying with his parents, but we needed to figure out the house, our joint accounts, and all the mundane details of untangling 3 years together. I'd been putting off that conversation, but I knew it couldn't wait forever. On a rainy Tuesday evening, I was curled up on the couch watching Netflix when someone knocked on the door. I assumed it was Tessa, or maybe a delivery, so I opened it without checking the peephole. A woman in a business suit stood on my porch, holding a manila envelope. Eluned marrow? Yes? You've been served. She handed me the envelope and walked away before I could respond. I stared at the envelope, my heart pounding. Served with what? I tore it open with shaking hands and pulled out a stack of legal documents. The first page made my blood run cold. Petition for legal separation and custody arrangements. Simon was suing me, not just for separation, but for custody of Mila, our 7-year-old daughter I'd somehow forgotten to mention in all my self-righteous anger. How had I let myself forget about Mila? She'd been staying with Simon's parents during our break, and I'd been so caught up in my new relationship that I'd barely thought about her. I flipped through the pages, my panic growing with each legal term I didn't understand. Simon was asking for primary custody, claiming I was an unfit parent due to emotional instability and extramarital affair. The next section made me sick. Evidence submitted. There were screenshots of my Instagram posts mocking Simon and his parents, bank records showing cash withdrawals that corresponded with my coffee dates with Dane, credit card statements highlighting charges at restaurants where Dane and I had eaten. But the worst part was a flash drive labeled audio and video evidence. Simon had been recording me. Our fights, my phone calls with Dane, everything. My hands shook as I read the final page, a list of witnesses willing to testify about my behavior. Mike, Jessica, Sarah, all our mutual friends who'd watched me humiliate Simon in public. Even some of my co-workers who'd heard me complaining about Simon and his family. I grabbed my phone and called Simon, but it went straight to voicemail. I tried his parents' house, but June answered and politely told me Simon wasn't available to speak with me. June, please, I need to talk to him about Mila. Mila is fine, June said firmly. She's safe and cared for, which is what matters right now. The line went dead. I called Dane, sobbing into the phone. He's taking my daughter away from me. He's trying to destroy my life. Hey, calm down, Dane said. What's going on? I explained about the legal papers, the evidence, the custody battle. Dane listened sympathetically, but when I finished, there was a long pause. "This is getting pretty complicated," he said finally. "Maybe we should slow things down until you get this sorted out." "What do you mean?" "I mean, I didn't sign up for a custody battle and legal drama. I like you, Eluned, but this is a lot." The words hit me like ice water. "So you're abandoning me too?" "I'm not abandoning anyone. I'm just saying maybe we should take a step back while you handle your family situation." After he hung up, I sat alone in my empty house, finally understanding the full scope of what I'd lost. Simon wasn't just leaving me, he was systematically dismantling my life, and he had the evidence to do it. The man I'd dismissed as weak and passive had been quietly building a case against me while I'd been playing house with a barista who couldn't handle the first sign of real trouble. I thought about Mila, probably confused and scared about why Mommy and Daddy weren't living together anymore. I thought about Simon, who'd loved me for 3 years and gotten public humiliation in return. I thought about June and Walter, who'd only ever tried to welcome me into their family. For the first time in months, I saw the situation clearly. I wasn't the victim of other people's judgment and impossible standards. I was the architect of my own destruction. And Simon, quiet, methodical Simon, had been documenting every brick I'd laid. The next morning, I called every lawyer in town, but Simon had been thorough. He'd already consulted with most of them, creating conflicts of interest that prevented them from representing me. The few lawyers who could take my case all said the same thing. Simon had an airtight case, and I was probably going to lose primary custody. "Your best bet is to negotiate," one attorney advised. "Admit fault, show genuine remorse, and hope he's willing to work out a reasonable custody arrangement." But when I tried to call Simon again, I got the same result. Voicemail, no callback. He was done talking. Now he was letting the courts handle everything. 3 months later, I sat in family court listening to Judge Patricia Williams read her decision. Simon had been awarded primary custody of Mila, with me getting supervised visitation every other weekend. The judge's words cut through me like knives. The evidence shows a pattern of emotional instability, poor judgment, and behavior that prioritizes the petitioner's desires over her child's well-being. Simon sat with his lawyer, looking tired but relieved. His parents were in the gallery behind him, June's hand resting supportively on his shoulder. I was alone. Dane had disappeared completely after our last conversation. My mother had flown in for the hearing, but spent most of her time complaining about how unfair everything was, instead of offering real support. As we left the courthouse, Simon finally approached me. "I want you to know this wasn't about revenge," he said quietly. "It was about protecting Mila." "Simon, please. You can rebuild your life, Eluned, but you need to start by taking responsibility for the choices that brought you here." He walked away with his parents, leaving me standing on the courthouse steps with the wreckage of everything I'd destroyed through my own arrogance and selfishness. The man I'd thought was too weak to stand up for himself had proved to be stronger than I'd ever imagined. While I'd been busy playing victim and seeking validation from a stranger, Simon had been quietly protecting our daughter and building a new life without me. I'd mocked him for being methodical and careful, but those same qualities had allowed him to outmaneuver me completely. The judge had made me regret every cruel word, every public humiliation, every moment I'd chosen my pride over my family. But the real punishment wasn't the legal consequences. It was finally understanding that I'd thrown away the best thing in my life for absolutely nothing.